Hello and welcome to the channel. In today's video, I'd like to talk about why I believe the crypto stock bull run of this season cycle is over. Why I think things are going downhill from here. I know people might think that's stupid because if you look at certain assets like BTC, the Nasdaq, the S&P, they're not like in the red. They're slightly going back up near their all-time highs. But you realize most assets are getting punished. Like alts are nowhere near where they were months ago. And the likelihood of them rebounding and blasting off is very low. I got a couple reasons why I believe it's over. And I'll go in depth in each one of these like themes. The first one is recession fears and signs. The second one is like there's no more steam. And the third one is the summer season is here. I'm gonna start with recession signs right now. So if you look at the charts, you like go on the website like fred.gov or whatever, that government website that has all these charts, such as the unemployment rate, the Fed funds rate, the yield curve, you'll realize um, the gray shaded area in all of these charts signify the recession period. And you kind of realize like the longer ones usually start later on. Like if you look at the yield curve chart, it's uninverted now. And you kind of compare that to history of like year and a half long recessions. We're kind of like basically due for one to begin. I honestly think it's going to happen sometime this year, probably later on in this year when unemployment ticks up to around 5% maybe. Um, Even if you look at like the Fed funds rate, you realize like when the Fed cuts interest rates later on in that interest rate cut cycle, that's when that recession also begins. Um, Usually if something were to have to break in the economy, who knows what this one could be, but you think about how the lag of interest rates and how high they've been. They've been high for so long, since like 2022, less than that, maybe 2021. So it's been like 4 years of hiking and pauses, and we're still not finished with that. We're still in pauses, but someone's gonna break. You gotta imagine like the amount of debt people are accumulating and the amount of people that are in the country, and it doesn't happen overnight. Like it affects people one by one, and one day it just all piles up. I think we're about due for that. You look at the Department of Government Efficiency and the mass layoffs they're also doing, um, alongside other businesses that are closing down. Why is all this happening? Well, because of just poor economic conditions, tariffs from Trump being a part of it for sure. Um, yeah, definitely the recession signs. I think they're here. Now, this ties into, let me go on to my next point, summer. So, if you look at the summer season, that's like May, June, July, August, September, October. Those are like 6 months of, I know that kind of goes into fall too, but those are like 6 months of sideways or downwards market movements. And if you look at history of the S&P or crypto, you never see a bullish summer. It's never exponential growth. It's always sideways or downwards. So we're about there. People are spending money. They're on vacation. They're traveling. That's thousands of dollars. They're trying to save money to go back to university or whatever. Whatever it is, wedding season near the fall. All that is money. All that is investing in other things, and people are not investing in stocks and crypto. So, yep. And then what else? Oh yeah, I think it's also over because of there's no more steam. Like I think 2023 was bearish. I think 2024 was very bullish. But why was that? Because of positive news. Steam comes from positive news, right? So at the beginning of 2024, the ETFs were official, and that changed the game. The money flowed into the ETFs. And then later on, summer came around and the steam was kind of stagnant. But fall came around in 2024. The government, in particular, President Trump, he fueled more steam. He gained the votes and talked pro crypto, came out with his own coin. Steam was hot. I think that was it. I think that was the peak. I think that's all there is to be. No one's talking about it anymore. It was a bait and switch, in my opinion. It was all hype for their own political agenda, and I think that's it. If you look at bull runs, they're like a year long, a year and a half. They don't last for a long time, and we had that year, maybe a little bit more, because there was time to make gains. 2025 is here. Gains aren't really there. It's a year of, it's a state of confusion right now and fear. But what happens in these states? Paper hands just come into play. People start to sell. Bad news happens and whatnot. And I think bad news is coming either way. Like this was basically forecasted years ago because of the inflation spike. And you look at history, we're like, history just basically repeats. So I think the only way to make things bullish from here is if the government just prints a lot more money, right? That's the only way. But they're not, why would they do that? That's how we got here. If they did that, assets would go up. Inflation would be out of control like no other. All of this would have been a waste, the whole interest rate cycle and whatnot. So yeah, I think things are going to slowly die down from here. And I think the next run will probably happen several years from now, the next cycle after the recession. Those are my thoughts. Thanks for listening. Let me know what you think.